The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of that cramped Manhattan conference room like it was trying to drown out the world outside. But nothing could silence the venom in Karen's voice as she cornered Elias by the coffee station. "So, you're telling me you're single? At your age? No wonder you're always so distracted at work." Her laugh sliced through the air, sharp as a paper cut, and I watched Elias's shoulders hunch just a fraction, his fingers tightening around his mug until his knuckles bleached white. In that split second, before I even knew what possessed me, I stepped forward, sliding an arm around his waist like it was the most natural thing in the world, and said with a grin that felt borrowed from someone braver, "Actually, he's very much taken by me." Elias froze against me, his body rigid as a board, but he didn't pull away. Not then. The room went dead silent, Karen's smirk evaporating like mist under the sun, and I could feel the heat of a dozen pairs of eyes boring into us colleagues who'd whispered about Elias's quiet pride parades on social media, the rainbow pin on his lanyard that no one ever mentioned. My heart jackhammered in my chest, not from fear, but from the electric jolt of his warmth seeping through his button-down shirt. A reminder that this lie I'd just spun was already unraveling something deep inside me. Little did I know, that single act of pretend chivalry would drag us both into a storm we couldn't outrun, forcing me to confront the man I'd buried under layers of denial since college. I'm Jackson Hale, 28 years old, product manager at a mid-tier tech firm in Midtown. The kind of guy who blends into the gray suits and fluorescent lights like camouflage. Born and raised in a sleepy suburb outside Chicago, I carried the Midwest manners my mom drilled into my hold doors. Say please. Never air your laundry in public. I'd moved to New York 5 years ago chasing the dream of making it. But mostly I was just chasing stability. A paycheck that covered my overpriced studio in Brooklyn and the occasional craft beer with buddies who thought I was straight as an arrow. Which I was. Or so I told myself. Elias Rivera, on the other hand, was the wild card in our open plan office, 26. Fresh from a marketing degree at NYU. With a laugh that could disarm a boardroom and eyes that seemed to see right through the corporate BS we all peddled. He was Puerto Rican American, raised in the Bronx, and unapologetically gay subtle about it most days, but fierce when it counted. We'd bonded over late-night project deadlines, trading stories about bad bosses and worse dates, but never anything that crossed the line into personal. Until that rainy Tuesday in July. The fallout from my impromptu declaration was immediate and chaotic. By lunch, the office Slack channel was buzzing with eggplant emojis and winking faces. HR sent a polite email about workplace boundaries, and Karen slunk back to her cubicle looking like she'd swallowed a lemon. Elias cornered me in the break room that afternoon, his green eyes wide with a mix of gratitude and panic. "Jackson, what the hell was that?" he whispered, glancing over his shoulder as if the vending machine might rat us out. I shrugged, trying to play it cool, but my palms were slick with sweat. Look, she was being a total witch. Figured a fake boyfriend might shut her up. No big deal. He studied me for a beat, then let out a breath that sounded like relief wrapped in laughter. "Well, thanks, man. But now everyone's going to think. You know." He trailed off, rubbing the back of his neck, and I felt that jolt again, the one that made my stomach twist in ways I wasn't ready to unpack. What started as a one-off white knight move snowballed faster than a viral TikTok. 2 days later, Elias's phone lit up during our team happy hour at some dive bar in Hell's Kitchen, his abuela from the Bronx, demanding to know why she'd heard from a coworker that he had a novio. Apparently, Karen had a big mouth and a family connection. Elias groaned into his beer, then looked at me with those pleading eyes. "Jackson, you're a lifesaver if you could just play along. One call. That's it. Tell her I'm off the market." I hesitated. The foam from my IPA suddenly bitter on my tongue. But the way his face crumpled like a kid who'd lost his last shot at belonging tugged at something primal in me. Fine, I said, downing the rest of my drink for courage. But only because your grandma sounds terrifying. That call was a masterclass in improv theater. Abuela Rivera grilled me in rapid-fire Spanglish about my intentions, my job, my mother's maiden name, and whether I knew how to make arroz con gandals. Elias sat across from me on his sagging couch in his Washington Heights walk-up, biting his lip to stifle giggles, his bare feet tucked under him like he was trying to make himself smaller. I spun tales of weekend hikes in the Catskills and dreams of opening a food truck someday, all while stealing glances at the way his curls caught the lamplight. Soft and untamed. By the end, she was cooing about grandkids and inviting me to Sunday dinner. Elias hung up and collapsed against the cushions, laughing so hard tears streamed down his cheeks. You were amazing. Oscar-worthy. Our eyes locked. And for a heartbeat, the air thickened, charged with something unspoken. I looked away first, muttering about needing another beer. Because if I didn't, I might have done something stupid like trace the curve of his smile with my thumb. Word spread like wildfire through his family network shows texting congrats. Cousins posting blurry photos of us from the office holiday party last year. Photoshopped with heart filters. Elias's world, once a solo act of quiet resilience against the casual homophobia that simmered in family gatherings and office small talk, suddenly had a shield. And me. I was the shield. Stepping into dinners in the Bronx where the air smelled of sofrito and skepticism. Charming aunts who eyed me like I might bolt. It was exhilarating at first. The rush of being needed. Of seeing Elias light up when his dad clapped me on the back and called me Mijo for the first time. We'd rehearse lines in his kitchen over takeout empanadas. How long have you two been together? 6 months met at a client mixer. Simple. Seamless. But every touch his hand brushing mine under the table. The way he'd lean into me during a movie night to dodge questions chipped away at the walls I'd built around my own truths. By the end of August, the pretense had woven itself into our routines. We'd grab coffee before shifts, my hand lingering on his lower back as we navigated the subway crush. And I'd catch myself memorizing the freckles across his nose. The lilt in his voice when he talked about his dream of writing a graphic novel about queer heroes in the Latinx diaspora. One evening, after a brutal client pitch where the execs had dead-named a trans colleague in passing, Elias showed up at my door with a bottle of red and eyes red-rimmed from holding it together. I can't do this alone anymore, he said, voice cracking as he stepped inside. I pulled him into a hug meant to be platonic. Supportive, but his head fit perfectly against my chest. And I breathed in the scent of his shampoo. Citrus and clean. Like summer rain on pavement. We talked until dawn. About the loneliness of being the gay one in every room. About my own buried fears of disappointing my conservative folks back home. For the first time, the game felt less like acting and more like exhaling. Fall crept in with amber leaves blanketing Central Park and a chill that seeped into our bones during weekend walks. The office buzz had died down, but the family dinners persisted, evolving from interrogations to genuine warmth. At one gathering, Elias's little sister Mia, all of 12 and wise beyond her braces, tugged me aside and whispered, "You're good for him, Jackie. He smiles more now." Her words landed like a gut punch, stirring an ache I couldn't name. That night, as Elias and I strolled home through the glowing streets of Harlem, our shoulders bumping in comfortable rhythm, he stopped under a street lamp and turned to me. "This. Us. It's working. Right. Feels real sometimes." His voice was soft, tentative, and in the golden light, his face was open. Vulnerable in a way that made my throat tighten. I wanted to say yes, to admit that the lines had blurred months ago, That pretending had become my favorite truth. Instead, I ruffled his hair like we were just bros. Yeah, buddy, it's all good. But as I lay awake that night in my empty apartment, the ceiling fan whirring like accusations, I knew the lie was cracking, and what lay beneath terrified me more than any family dinner ever could. October brought deadlines that blurred into sleepless nights. Our desks pushed together in a war room of spreadsheets and stale donuts. Elias thrived under pressure, his ideas sparking like firecrackers. But I noticed the toll the way he'd rub his temples during calls, the faint shadows under his eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. One Thursday, after a win that had the VP toasting us with cheap champagne, he pulled me into the stairwell. His tie loosened like a noose finally cut free. Dinner. My treat. To celebrate. It was innocent enough. Or so I told myself as we ended up at this hole-in-the-wall taqueria in the East Village. Plates piled high with carnitas and laughter flowing freer than the margaritas. He opened up about his coming-out story. The rejection from his dad that still stung like salt in a fresh wound. How he'd rebuilt himself brick by brick in the city's unforgiving embrace. You're the first guy who stuck around without wanting something from me, he said, his fork pausing midair, gaze steady and searching. I swallowed hard, the spice burning hotter than it should. What if I do want something? The words slipped out before I could reel them back, hanging between us like smoke. Elias's eyes widened, a flicker of hope warring with caution. But then my phone buzzed me, sister from Illinois, asking about Thanksgiving plans, reminding me of the life I still claimed back there. I deflected with a joke about his abuela's cooking, and the moment shattered, leaving shards that pricked at me for days. But the seed was planted. Our dates multiplied brunch in Soho, where he'd sketch characters on napkins while I pretended not to stare. A haunted house crawl in the village, his hand gripping mine through the jump scares, not letting go even after. Each touch lingered longer. Each glance held deeper. And I started dreaming in fragments, his laugh echoing in empty rooms, his fingers interlaced with mine under starless skies. By mid-November, the pretense was a full-blown performance. But the audience had shrunk to just us. At a family Thanksgiving in the Bronx Turkey alongside Purnell. Arguments over politics, softened by gratitude. Elias's dad pulled me aside on the fire escape, a cigar clenched in his teeth. You make him happy, Jackson. That's more than most. The old man's voice was gruff, laced with the regret of years lost to pride. And it hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just about Elias anymore. It was about the boy I'd been at 18, kissing a teammate behind the bleachers and swearing it was a fluke, burying it under frat parties and straight girlfriends that never quite fit. That night, as snow dusted the city like powdered sugar, Elias and I shared a cab back to Brooklyn, our thighs pressed together in the backseat warmth. Stay over, he murmured, not as a question but a quiet plea. My yes was immediate, instinctive, and when we tumbled into my apartment, shedding coats and pretenses, it wasn't the game that pulled me closey, it was the man who'd become my anchor. We didn't cross every line that night, but the ones we did were electric. Tentative explorations born of months of build-up. Waking to his head on my chest, the morning light filtering through blinds to paint stripes on his skin. I felt a peace I'd chased across states and jobs. But reality intruded like a cold draft. The office holiday party loomed, where facades were mandatory, and my family expected me home for Christmas, single and uncomplicated as ever. Elias sensed the shift, rolling over with a sleepy smile. Penny for your thoughts. I traced the line of his jaw, memorizing it, just wondering how long we can keep this up before it breaks us. He propped on an elbow. Serious now. Or makes us. His words echoed through the days that followed, a mantra against the doubt creeping in. December arrived with festive frenzy, string lights twinkling in shop windows, carols blasting from every corner. Our charade hit its stride at the company gala. Me in a rented tux that felt like armor. Elias radiant in emerald velvet that matched his eyes. We danced, slow and swaying, to some crooner tune. And for a moment, the world narrowed to his breath on my neck, the press of his hand at my waist. Whispers followed us, didn't know Jackson swung that way, but they bounced off like rain on glass. Later, in a quiet alcove, he kissed me, soft and sure, tasting of champagne and promise. This is real, Jackson. For me. Anyway, my heart soared and sank in equal measure. Because admitting it meant dismantling the life I'd curated. The labels I'd worn like ill-fitting clothes. But cracks widened. My mom called mid-month. Her voice bright with plans for gingerbread houses and old photo albums. Bring anyone special, she teased, and I choked on the truth, mumbling about work stress instead. Elias overheard, retreating into himself like a flower at frost. Our easy banter icing over. We argued that night in his apartment. Words flying like daggers. If you're ashamed, just say it. He shouted, tears carving tracks down his cheeks. I'm not God, Elias. It's complicated. I fired back, but the hurt in his eyes mirrored my own. A chasm born of fear. He slept on the couch. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment that had led us here, realizing the game had long since ended. And what remained was raw, terrifying love. The holidays hit like a double-edged sword, bliss in stolen moments. Agony in the silences. Christmas Eve found us at his family's again. The apartment alive with salsa music and twinkling luminarias. But tension hummed beneath the cheer. Elias played host with forced smiles, while I fielded questions about our future. My answers polished but hollow. Under the mistletoe hung by his mischievous cousin kissed me fiercely. A statement to the room and a question to me alone. Tell me you feel it too, he whispered later, as we washed dishes side by side, suds bubbling like unspoken fears. I cupped his face, thumbs brushing away water droplets that weren't from the sink. Every day? But my family's expecting me tomorrow. Alone. His nod was small, resigned, but the pain in it lodged in my chest like shrapnel. Flying home to Illinois was a descent into the familiar, snow-blanketed fields. My parents' colonial house smelling of pine and cinnamon. My sister's kids shrieking with joy at my arrival. They enveloped me in hugs and queries, seeing anyone. And I deflected with stories of New York chaos, omitting the one that mattered. But ghosts haunted the guest room. High school yearbooks with photos of me and my best friend Mark. The one whose goodbye hug lingered too long. The letter I'd burned after college. Confessing feelings I'd never voiced. On Christmas morning. Opening gifts with the precision of ritual. I cracked slipping out to the backyard. Breath fogging in the frigid air. Dialing Elias on a whim. Merry Christmas, he answered. Voice thick with sleep and something sadder. We talked for hours. Him in his empty apartment. Me under a bare oak tree. Bridging the miles with truths I'd hoarded. I miss you, I admitted. The words a dam breaking. Come back to me, Jackson. All of you. The new year dawned with resolutions I intended to keep. Back in the city, I showed up at Elias's door on January 1st with coffee and a plan. Come out to my family. Slowly, starting with my sister. Her reaction over FaceTime was a bomb, tears and hugs through the screen. I've always known. Dummy. Just be happy. Emboldened. I updated my dating profile, not that I'd used it in years, adding a rainbow flag that felt like shedding skin. Work noticed too. Our relationship became office lore, inspiring a junior designer to come out at the next all hands. Elias beamed at me across the table, pride swelling his chest. And in quiet moments, we'd steal away to the rooftop. City lights sprawling below like a canvas of possibilities. Yet growth wasn't linear. February's Valentine's Day brought a blizzard that trapped us indoors. Binge-watching rom-coms that hit too close to home. Curled on the couch, his head in my lap, Elias traced patterns on my knee. What if this scares you off? The real flaws and all. I tilted his chin up, meeting his gaze. You're the best thing that's ever scared me. We made love then. Not as pretense, but as affirmation. Bodies and souls aligning in a rhythm that healed old wounds. But March tested us. A promotion for me meant travel. Weeks apart that amplified insecurities. Late-night calls turned terse. Accusations flying. Are you pulling away? No. It's just work. Until a fight in April. Over nothing and everything. Left him silent for days. I showed up at his door with flowers and apologies. Rain-soaked and desperate. I can't lose you, Elias. Not when I've just found myself. He pulled me inside. Our embrace a truce. And we vowed to communicate. To lean into the messiness of building something true. Spring unfurled with therapy sessions for me. Unpacking the denial. For him. Mending family rifts and joint weekends in the Hamptons. Where we walked beaches hand in hand. Dreaming aloud about adoptions and adventures. By summer, our one-year anniversary arrived. Marked not with fanfare, but a quiet picnic in Prospect Park. Where I got down on one knee, not with a ring. But a promise. Let's make this forever. For real. But promises, like summer storms, could brew dark clouds. July's heat wave mirrored the intensity building at work, a merger announcement that reshuffled teams. Landing Elias under a manager with a history of microaggressions. He came home drained. The spark dimmed. And I watched helplessly as doubt crept back in. What if they find out we're not just colleagues? What if it costs you everything? He'd murmur at night. My arms around him a temporary shield. I fought back with actions, anonymous feedback to HR. Quiet advocacy in meetings. But the strain wore on us. One evening, after a particularly brutal day, he snapped, I don't need a savior. Jackson, I need a partner who sees me, not fixes me. The word stung, echoing my deepest fear of inadequacy. And I stormed out, wandering the humid streets until dawn, questioning if love was enough against the world's grind. Reconciliation came in fragments, a weekend getaway to the Finger Lakes, where lake breezes and bonfires coaxed out vulnerabilities. Over Esmores, Elias confessed his terror of repeating his parents' fractured marriage. The generational trauma of machismo clashing with authenticity. I shared my own, the pressure of being the golden boy, the straight-A son who traded dreams for safety. We're breaking the cycle, I said, lacing our fingers. Together. Fall semester vibes hit the office with fresh interns and renewed energy. But personal tides shifted when my mom visited New York, meeting Elias over dim sum in Chinatown. She hugged him like long-lost kin, whispering later, he's got your heart in his eyes. Don't let fear steal that. Her acceptance, hard-won over months of calls, unlocked something in May, of freedom to love without apology. November's election cycle stirred national unrest, protests marching through our streets. And Elias threw himself into activism, volunteering at queer youth centers in Brooklyn. I joined where I could, manning phones and marching arm in arm. The chance a heartbeat syncing with our own. One rally, amid tear gas haze and linked arms. He turned to me, face flushed with fervor. This is why I fight for us. For kids like Mia who deserve to see love like ours. Pride swelled, but so did peril. A colleague's offhand slur during a team lunch ignited a firestorm. HR meetings dragging on. Alliances fracturing. Elias bore the brunt, his confidence eroding. And our home became a sanctuary of quiet support nights of takeout and talks. Rebuilding resilience one shared breath at a time. Winter's grip tightened with December's chill. But our bond warmed like hearth fire. Holiday cards now featured us both, my family tree expanding to include his. On New Year's Eve, atop the Empire State, fireworks exploding overhead. We toasted to growth, his graphic novel pitch accepted by a small press. My side hustle in app development gaining traction. To us, he said, clinking glasses. The realest thing I've ever pretended. Laughter bubbled up, but tears too, joy laced with the knowledge that every step forward invited stumbles. January brought resolutions anew. Therapy deepening our toolkit against triggers. And February's love letter exchange, handwritten notes tucked into pockets, rekindled the spark. Yet March whispered warnings. Elias's abuela fell ill, pulling him back to the Bronx for weeks of vigils and whispered prayers. I held space from afar, sending care packages of her favorite teas. But absence amplified anxieties. When he returned, hollow-eyed from grief's edge, we grieved together, her recovery a miracle, but the fragility a reminder. Life's too short for half measures, he said, pulling me close. Spring bloomed with renewal, park picnics, therapy breakthroughs, a joint vacation to Puerto Rico where roots intertwined with romance. By summer's end, as cicadas hummed, we faced our biggest test, a job offer for me in Chicago, a chance to bridge my past and present. The offer landed like a thunderclap in August. Email pinging during a lazy Sunday brunch. Senior role. Better pay. Closer to family, but it meant leaving New York. Leaving him. Or asking him to uproot. Elias read the printout over coffee, his expression a mask of support cracking at the edges. This is huge. Jackson. Your dream. But his voice wavered. And that night, as we lay tangled in sheets, he voiced the unspoken, what about us? Long distance? Or do I follow? Uproot my life again? The question hung, heavy as humidity, forcing me to confront the selfishness I'd masked as sacrifice. Days blurred into debates, pros and cons lists scrawled on napkins, calls to therapists for neutral ground. In the end, I turned it down, not out of fear, but clarity. My future was here, with him, building something unbreakable. September's back-to-school energy infused our routines, but ripples from the decision lingered. Elias worried I'd resent him. I fretted over complacency. Small fissures threatened to widen. We countered with intention, weekly date nights themed around gratitude, sharing one win and one worry over candlelight. October's foliage painted the city in fire, mirroring the passion reignited during a weekend in the Berkshire Shikes through rustling woods, where confessions flowed freer than streams. I almost lost you to that job, he admitted by a crackling fire. No, I replied, pulling him nearer. I almost lost myself. You saved me. Vulnerability bonded us tighter. But external storms brewed, office layoffs loomed. Whispers of budget cuts targeting non-essential roles like his and DI initiatives. The axe fell in November. Elias's position axed in a boardroom bloodbath. He came home shell-shocked. Severance papers crumpled in his fist. The man who'd lit up rooms now dimmed. What if I'm not enough? What if this city chews me up? Rage and helplessness warred in May raged at suits and emails. Networked furiously for leads, but he needed more than fixes. We leaned into each other, mornings of job hunts interspersed with walks in the cold. Evenings of his sketches turning pain into art. His graphic novel, born of that void, took shape, pages of a young queer artist navigating loss. Finding fire. My support was steadfast. But internally, doubt gnawed. Could I be his rock when my own foundations quaked? December brought unexpected grace, a freelance gig for Elias at a progressive media outlet, leveraging his voice for queer stories that resonated nationwide. Holiday lights twinkled brighter against our renewed hope. Family gatherings a chorus of encouragement. New Year's found us at a queer ballroom bash in Bushwick, bodies swaying to pulsing beats, his hand in mine a defiant anchor. Resolutions focused on balance, his career pivot to writing. My mentorship of interns to foster inclusive spaces. February's chill couldn't touch the warmth of his book deal signing. Champagne popped in our kitchen as we danced. Dreams materializing. Spring surged with Momentum Elias's panels at literary fests. My promotion filling the financial gap. But May's Pride Month amplified joys and jagged edges. A protest march turned volatile. Elias caught in a scuffle that left him bruised, questioning the fight's worth. Home. Icing his ribs. He broke. Is visibility worth the violence? I held him, whispering of ancestors who'd paved this path. Our love a testament to their courage. Healing came in therapy. In community potlucks where stories stitched wounds. Summer solstice saw us at Fire Island. Waves crashing as we renewed vows not formal, but fervent committing to the long haul. By fall, stability settled like autumn mist. Elias's book launch in October drew crowds, his words weaving our journey into fiction that moved strangers to tears. November's Thanksgiving was ours to host. Tables groaning under fusion feasts. Families blended in laughter and lore. As winter loomed, we eyed the future, talks of rings, of homes beyond cramped studios. Yet December's quiet nights reminded us love wasn't a destination, but a daily dawn, chosen amid tempests. January's frost-etched patterns on windows, mirroring the intricate layers we'd uncovered in each other over years. Elias's book climbed indie charts, interviews pulling him into spotlights where he shone, crediting my partner in crime with a wink that made my chest ache with pride. But success bred scrutiny, online trolls dredging his past, family dynamics straining under newfound fame. One night, after a vicious comment thread, he curled into me on the couch, voice muffled against my shirt. Do you ever regret this? The mess that comes with me. I tilted his face to mine. Fierce. You're not a mess, you're a masterpiece. And I'm all in. Our lovemaking that night was tender, reaffirming. A balm against the barbs. February's Valentines found us snowed in, crafting homemade cards by candlelight when power flickered out a nod to our scrappy beginnings. His gift to me, a custom sketch of us as superheroes. Capes billowing in urban winds. Mine, tickets to a Broadway revival of a queer classic, where tears flowed freely in the dark. Stories echoing our own. March's thaw brought transitions, my company restructuring meant hybrid roles. Freeing time for a Passion Projecta podcast on allyship, co-hosted with Elias. Voices intertwining to amplify marginalized tales. Listeners poured in. Messages of gratitude flooding inboxes, reminding us of ripples from resilience. April showers drenched cherry blossoms, but internal storms gathered. Elias's abuela passed peacefully, her bedside vigil a tapestry of tears and triumphed whisper damn. Love like yours heals generations. The funeral in the Bronx was a celebration, merengue mingling with mournful hymns. Her blessing on us etched in every embrace. Grief hollowed him, but I witnessed alchemy, pain fueling his sequel. Chapters raw with legacy. I supported silently cooking her recipes, holding space for sobs learning that love's quietest acts echo loudest. May's blooms heralded pride's rainbow tide. Our parade flowed a beacon of stories shared. Elias keynote the youth summit, his words igniting eyes long dimmed by doubt. Pretending saved me once, but truth set me free. Backstage, he pulled me into a hug, whispering, "You were my truth." Summer's heat wave tested endurance, a heat stroke scare during a book tour stop in humid D.C. My vigil at his hotel bed a vow renewed. Recovery brought reflection scaling back gigs, prioritizing us amid acclaim's clamor. Fall's harvest moon watched over milestones, our third anniversary in October. Celebrated with a vow renewal on a rooftop. City skyline as witness. Rings exchanged simple bands engraved with no more games, sealed promises. November's chill nipped at gratitude circles. Families gathering for hybrid Thanksgivings. Toasts to endurance. December's solstice lit candles against dark. Our home a haven of handwritten letters. Dreams journaled for the year ahead. January cycled back. But we were evolved therapy a ritual. Boundaries sacred. Elias's sequel deal secured. My podcast syndicating nationally. February's love notes evolved to vision boards. Mapping adoptions and travels. March's equinox balanced work and wonder, a trip to Chicago. Introducing him to my roots. Mom baking pastelillos and welcome. April's renewal saw us house hunting in Queens. Envisioning walls that held our laughter. Yet May whispered of mortality, a health scare for my dad. Pulling me homeward. Elias's hand steady in mine through chemo waits. We're in this. All of it. He said. His strength my scaffold. Summer's lazy days mended beach reeds and bonfires. Healing in horizons. By fall. Dad's remission rang bells of hope. Our Thanksgiving a symphony of survival. October's leaves swirled like confetti at Elias's book tour finale. A sold-out reading in Brooklyn where fans queued for signatures. Sharing how his words had cracked their shells. Backstage. Amid bouquets and buzz. He drew me aside. Eyes alight. This is ours, you sparked the story. Pride mingled with prescience. Whispers of Hollywood interest. Scripts brewing our pretend-to-real arc into film. We navigated warily agents calling. NDAs signing but grounded in each other. Vetoing deals that diluted truth. November's frost-etched resolve. My podcast hit 1 million downloads. Episodes on intersectional love drawing diverse voices. A live recording at a queer center. Elias moderating. Became cathartic communion listeners, tales mirroring ours. Weaving a web of witness lives. December's holidays blended traditions. Hanukkah lax with Noche Buena pork. Families fused in festivity. On Christmas. Under twinkling trees. We gifted Futurisa fertility consult booked. Dreams of family taking shape. January's new leaf turned to nesting. Our queen's brownstone closing. Boxes packed with memories. Unpacking unearthed relics of faded office lanyard. The rainbow pin that started it all prompting nights of nostalgia. From fake to forever. Elias quipped. But his gaze held depths of devotion. February's Valentine's vowed vulnerability, couples retreats. Where we unpacked parenting fears. Envisioning a child with his curls. My stubborn streak. March's winds heralded change. Elias's film adaptation greenlit. Consultants flying in for authenticity checks. We consulted as a unit. Ensuring queer joy uncompromisetti's input shaping scenes of our rain-soaked origin. April's showers blessed the brownstone garden. First sprouts symbolizing growth. A positive fertility test in May donor selected. IVF underway brought terror and elation. Ultrasounds a heartbeat him. Summer's sun gilded our swell. Elias's pregnancy glow. My hand on his rounding belly. Feeling kicks like Morse code promises. Book tours paused. Podcasts parent-focused. Community cradling us. Fall's harvest swelled with scans and showers. Baby names debated over apple cider. November's thanks centered the miracle. Families toasting tiny feet. December's chill wrapped us in woolens. Nursery painted in soft blues and greens. On solstice, labor's prelude stirred contractions like waves cresting. New Year's dawn birthed our son. Mateo Hail Rivera. Cries piercing the ward like victory songs. In that sterile room, Elias exhausted and exultant. Our eyes met over swaddled warmth. We did this. Real as it gets. January's haze of diapers and delirium deepened Bond's sleepless nights tag-teamed. First smiles currency richer than gold. Elias's postpartum journey. Raw with hormones and healing. Met my unwavering witness. Therapy tandem. Support circle sustaining. February's love letters now lullabies. Croon to Mateo. March's equinox balanced chaos and calm. Elias's book 3 outlined. My sabbatical for paternity leave. April's renewal saw Mateo grasp fingers. Milestones marking time's tender march. May's pride paraded with a stroller. Our family flowed a beacon of blended beauty. Summer's lazy afternoons picnicked in parks. Mateo's gurgles soundtrack to stories told. Fall's foliage framed first steps. Wobbly toward open arms. By winter's embrace. As snow fell soft. We reflected, from a rainy conference room ruse to this tapestry of truth. Love's art profound. Years folded like pages in Elias's ever-growing canon. Each chapter etched with the ink of intention. Mateo turned one amid cake-smeared chaos. His toddling steps echoing our early stumbles falls followed by rises. Hands extended in trust. Elias's film premiered to acclaim. Red carpet walks hand-in-clasped. Critiques praising its heart, a testament to love's unscripted grace. Backstage tears flowed. Not from lights, but legacy queer stories centered. Invisibility shattered. November's Thanksgivings grew rowdier. Nieces and nephews chasing Mateo through leaves. Families a mosaic mended. December's holidays twinkled with traditions evolved. Mateo's first dreidel spin. Piñata bursts of joy. January's resolutions rooted in reflection. Family therapy fortifying foundations. Adventure's Planeta road trip cross-country. Tracing routes from Bronx to Berkshires. February's Valentine's vowed volume. Second child discussions. Elias's fertility renewed. March's winds whispered wonders positive tests again. Twin girls on horizon. April's showers nourished the brownstone. Garden bursting with Mateo's curious tugs. May's pride swelled prams. Our trio a triad of triumph. Summer's sun-baked playground escapades. Elias's fourth book birthed amid bottles and bedtime tales. Fall's harvest harvested hopes. Twins' arrival in October. Isabella and Sophia. Cries harmonizing with Mateo's cheers. The nursery doubled. Nights a symphony of soothing. Days a dance of delight. Winter's hush held us close. Snowmen built with tiny mittens. January cycled to 5 years wed vows renewed lakeside. Mateo ring-bearer beaming. Elias's series option for TV. Authenticity his North Star. My podcast evolved to family forums. Voices vast. February's love bloomed bi-coastal. Visits to Chicago grandparents. Sophia's coups melting Midwestern Reserve. March's equinox equilibrated Empire's Elias scripting episodes. Me directing docs on queer parenting. April's renewal rooted routines, preschool enrollments. Playdates forging futures. May's pride processed with posters proclaiming families like ours. Summer's sands sifted through sieves of sunscreen. Beach forts fortifying fraternal bonds. Fall's foliage framed first day school ward. Backpacks brimming bravery. By winter's weave. As 8th anniversary approached, we gathered under stars Elias sketching constellations. Kids clustered close. From pretend to this palace. He murmured. My arm around his waist. Echoes of that rainy day, faint but foundational. Love. We'd learned. Wasn't a game won, but a life lived fierce. Flawed. Forever unfolding. In the quiet. With heartbeats sinking like symphonies. We knew the greatest story was ours. Written in whispers and roars. A beacon for all who dared to drop the act.